Welcome to Commander Central, episode 182, and today we're going to talk about the repercussions of allowing hybrid mana in the format. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
Chris, welcome back.
What's up, homies?
We're once again 3/4 of the coolest pod you could possibly play in.
Oh, sweet, I'm a part of this group.
Yes, you are.
But, 3-person pods are just better than 4 period because they get done faster.
That's true.
I can deny that claim.
Well, I will say this last game of the night, I'm always down for a 3-person pod because I'm like, okay, then it'll this isn't going to linger on until 2 a.m. or something.
I do like the 5-person pods where you can do like the star, where you like your target.
Those are fun, yeah.
Yep. As long as you have a theory for it, the more people's better.
Legit, like if I'm playing a 5-player pod, I want it to be an alt game like that. I do not like playing straight up
free for all.
Yeah.
I've had my fill of more than 4-player games for a while.
So did you play a few in Austin? Max is recently back from his trip to Texas.
Yeah, we played, I think I played 22 to 23 games in like 2.5 days.
Nice. So was your brain mush after all of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mush and filled with brisket.
That's all right.
Listener of the show, Tim, brought a 15-pound brisket to share with the group.
Wow.
That he smoked himself, and a rack of ribs.
Oh, that's insane.
Then he heated it up like that night for us to all eat and feast on.
So you just ate brisket and played. That sounds like a like the perfect weekend, basically.
And drank a lot of beer.
Beer, brisket, and EDH.
I bet you his sleeves are just greasy now, though.
Oh, no. Nope. I always had paper towel, napkins, like wet wipes.
Yeah, that sounds like a good time. If you do it again next year, I'm going to definitely try to go.
For sure. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Played tons of games. Saw a lot of cool stuff that I haven't seen up here yet.
Nice. Did you bust out the new Grumgully deck?
I did bust out the new Grumgully deck. It got 1 win.
Okay.
And actually, Tim was the first person to say, I want to play against the deck. That's the rule, right? I'm like, yeah, that's the rule.
Sure.
You can play against it. And he goes, okay. And we played. And he goes, well, I need to sign a card now. That's the other rule. I'm like, yeah. He goes, but I brought a card for you.
Oh, nice.
And he had Ryan from Cad Popcast alter Carrie Zev.
Oh, cool.
To look like my favorite character from Borderlands, Tiny Tina. And then
wow.
Tim has a friend who works at Gearbox, so he sent him the card, and he had Randy Pitchford, the head of Gearbox, sign the card for me.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That is crazy.
It was probably the best altar I've ever gotten.
Wow.
And most thoughtful gift ever. So thank you, Tim. I really appreciate it. At one point, I think it's just going to get put into hard sleeve and like shadow boxed in my house versus in the deck, but it'll stay there for a while.
That's awesome.
I have a few cards that are set up like that, altar foils and stuff like that. They're just, nope, sit over here.
Yeah,
you're not
like,
being
don't
played.
Play with them. Yeah. No, that's super cool. Well, I am glad you had a good time, and we're also glad you're back, though.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm out of the sickness mostly now.
Yes.
For sure.
We're all healthy. Okay. Any other interesting games that got played this week? Chris didn't play.
Nope.
Max was still burnt out, I guess. So
I might be addicted to PlayStation 4 right now.
What are you playing on it?
Monster Hunter World.
Yeah.
I actually don't own a PS4, but I'm probably going to get one just to play the Final Fantasy VII remake.
Which
is next month.
I was going to say, I thought it was March or something.
Something
like
in
coming
March,
out.
I think.
They bumped it back.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'll have to get one.
I got to see a Izzet player playing a Brutaclad deck.
Okay.
On turn 3, Narset's Reversal, a Cultivate.
Why not? That's a good play.
Right?
That's a good play. Yeah.
It totally was unsuspected. I'm like, that's what you do on turn 3 with a Izzet deck to ramp.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good play. I like that a lot. I was playing my Super Friends deck, my Zero deck, and I kicked off. I got a couple of mana rocks early, and everyone else didn't have creatures out, so I got out Ajani, Caller of the Pride. That's the 3-mana Ajani that the ult makes you a 2/2 cat token equal to your life total. So if you have 40 life, you get 40 cat tokens. Usually I wait till I have Zero to start casting Planeswalkers, so I have a blocker, but like no one had creatures out, and I thought, okay, I knew I could cast Zero next turn, so I'll start rolling Ajani up. And I was able to then get in the point where he was ready to ult, and everyone, the other players in the game, were trying to like sneak through 1 damage here or there, but I just put 1 or 2 counters back on him next turn and get him into ult range again. So it turned into that kind of game where it was just a race to try to stop Ajani. But because they were throwing the resources at trying to knock him down, I was then able to like get a Mana Doubler out and get Rings of Brighthearth out and get a Cathar's Crusade out. Finally, they couldn't do it anymore because I was hitting, I had dropped Elspeth and -3 her to kill all the creatures, rolled a Johnny up, made 40 tokens because I still have 40 lives. I made 42 cats, copied at Rings of Brighthearth. So I had 82 cats, but because Cathar's Crusade was out, they became 80 cats.
It's a lot of math.
And I also had an arena rector in play. That was another thing that was keeping people from getting through because they didn't want to block with arena rector, and they didn't want me to then go drop an Ugin or something for free. So I made that arena rector, and like it was an 81, 82. I think she's a 1-2 by default or a 2-1, whatever it is. So she got 80 counters on her, and I was able to give her flying with Elspeth and kill someone with an 80 arena rector. And the next turn, finish everybody else off with cats that were 80s.
See, I wouldn't have dedicated all my attention into it. I would have just sat back and been like, ult them. And then Wrath.
Right. Yeah, I think one deck was mono green. The other deck actually did have board wipes. He just didn't have any. So it was a 3-player game too, last game of the night. And I think it's trickier in 3 players to do that because you only have 2 players to hope to have board wipes versus 3. And also my deck just kicked off perfectly. But I don't think I've ever, maybe once, ulted a Johnny and made tokens, let alone 40, let alone 80 of them.
Usually you don't minus him because he gives like +3/+3 and flying or something like that.
And the best part was the Catherine's Crusade, the turn I cast it, I had cast Divine Visitation first. And it got countered because they're like, well, we don't want to see you make those cats and angels. And then they followed that up with Catherine's Crusade. And I'm like, oh, well, that's... Either way, that was bad business.
Yep.
I mean, actually, with the tokens being 80 of them, they were dead anyway. But, like, you didn't want them as angels or with the Catherine's Crusade. That was bad for everybody no matter what. So that game felt pretty good.
And then you Teferi's Protection, and then next turn you're playing Boros, so you Insurrection,
Right.
take them, and kill you with them.
Man, I don't think there was anybody playing red in the game because Insurrection would have felt real bad.
Comeuppance, just boom.
Yeah.
Hit me with them.
And I did in a game also have somebody, what's the morph creature where you take control of a spell? You counter
Karu Spell Snatcher.
Spell Snatcher. Someone spell snatched my damnation. That would have killed me. It was in a position where like I had no way to win at that point. I was down to 2 life. There was a triggers that would have dealt damage to me when creatures died, and I couldn't figure out how to win. And I was definitely going to die from impact tremors, I think. So I wound up just casting Damnation. I'm like, I'll wipe the board. It'll kill me, whatever. It got Spell Snatcher, so I couldn't kill myself and wound up winning the game.
A typical Dana Roach
But
story
I'll
there.
say this, it was still the right play because the person who stopped it had a pretty good board state.
Yep.
And the assumption was I was going to die really quickly anyway. The other wrinkle thrown in the game was the 4th player had to scoop because his ride showed up. So I'm guessing if he would have been around, that was the person with the impact tremors. I should not have won that game. That was everything broke my way, including a player having to scoop. That was ridiculous. That I'm like, well, I'm dead, and I actually started gathering my cards up. He's like, I'm gonna spell snatch. I'm like, oh wow, all right. Well, I guess I'm not gonna die. So if you want to reach out to us and tell us what the biggest arena rector you ever died to is, how would you do that,
Don't
Chris?
Google that.
You can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. You can find us on Facebook searching CMDR Central. You can find us on YouTube CMDR Central, and you can find us online at cmdrcentral.com.
We're also over at patreon.com/CMDR Central. Head over there, and if you're so inclined to support us financially, it goes a long way to buying me pants and getting us out to see everybody out in the audience land.
Yeah, for sure. You can also find us on flipsidegaming.com.
Use promo code CMDR in all caps to get 10% off all orders, $10 or more.
All right. New contest this month.
Yeah, so we're kicking off the March contests a week early. So for Patreon this month, we're going to be giving away an Alayla Artful Provocateur. Is that her name?
Yep.
EDH deck built by our patron Zach D. and donated to the show, so thank you.
Zach sent us a full Alayla deck built out for Commander.
I've goldfished it a little bit. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a really fun deck to play.
So thank you, Zach, very much. And,
yes.
And yeah, one of our lucky listeners will win that.
And hopefully it won't be you.
Yes, right.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, right. Hey, Zach, here's your deck back.
And for Twitter, we're going to be giving away a full art altered Marath Will of the Wild done by a local friend of the show, Ben Johnston.
Nice. Ben's done a few. I think we've given one of those away in the past.
Yeah,
he did. Right?
He did a Lord Windgrace about a year ago.
Okay.
So you get the full art altar and you get the normal card, so you know what it does.
Very cool.
So we'll get that up on Twitter, and then retweets and follows get entered.
Excellent. All right. Couple brief news things here to mention. We haven't got any dates yet on Commander Fests, but somebody asked about it this week. I think I saw the professor at Community College mention it, and then Benny Smith mentioned it too. And Gavin at least followed up with like a yes, we know we're gonna have. He didn't say that, but like he acknowledged.
It was
that,
a winky face.
Yeah, that's how it was.
Yes.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll get dates on that soon. Now that Gavin clearly knows people want that, so We also got an announcement for MTG Jumpstart like 10 minutes ago, like an hour ago, but this is Thursday we're recording, so this will go out on Monday at this point. It'll probably be out there in the wild. Chris has not even seen this yet, I don't think. Have you?
I don't know. Start talking. Let me know what it is, and maybe I have.
It's not a huge deal. They're basically themed booster packs, and there's like 100 different variants. So there are 20 card booster packs, each with a set theme. So like one might be a goblin theme, one might have a theme based on giving creatures flying, whatever, with the goal where you take 2 of them, either intentionally or just randomly, shuffle them together to make a 40-card deck. Lands are included, and then you can play against somebody else's random deck that they've built using 2 different combinations.
Interesting.
So there's a gazillion different combinations you can make to make those decks. You know, theoretically, if you want to go to 60 cards, you can shuffle 3 of them together if you wanted to go that route. But it's over 500 different cards in the set, mostly reprints, but there's 37 new cards in there. So it's not all reprints. So that's something, at least for Commander players. I might get a couple new things. There might be some reprints that will be useful for us as well. No foils as well. So that is about it that matters for Commander out of that.
What's the price point on it?
Slightly more than a regular booster, they said, but I'd assume not a lot more.
Probably
so,
like $7.99, maybe like a Modern Horizons price.
Yeah, but that might be interesting to try. There is going to be a pre-release for it, but
yeah, it seems like a cool you don't have enough time for a draft, so just go buy 2 or 3 boosters, sit down in a pod like a draft would function essentially, and go.
Or you're having friends over or something, you want to do something aside from a game, you can just have a few of those packs and make a deck quick and play it out. Yeah, that's interesting. We got a brief announcement about Ikoria 2. The boxes will have a box topper and a buy box, so you'll get 2 cards with your Ikoria boxes, assuming you order from LGS that has a buy box.
Most LGSs get them, but it's all about the amount that they get.
Yes.
Allocations.
Allocations. I know for our personal LGS, they got so much. Everyone who pre-ordered got a buy box, and they never got more in.
Okay. Presumably, if you get in early enough, you can get both of those, but we don't know what the buy box is yet or what the box topper is.
I wonder if they'll do the box toppers like they did Ultimate Masters, where they're sealed in the box already.
They are. They're in the box. Yeah.
So,
and I would guess it's a mix of one of 20 different cards or something.
Probably.
Which probably means there'll also be an Ultimate Edition. They didn't announce that, but I would guess that we'll also get one of those again. We also got the names of the 2020 Commander decks. Ruthless Regiment, Arcane Maelstrom, Symbiotic Swarm, Timeless Wisdom, and Enhanced Evolution. That's it. We've been told nothing else about them other than they said, here are the names of the 5 decks.
I can almost assume what each one is.
Symbiotic Swarm, my first thought is that sounds like a Slivers deck to me. And it is a creature-based monster plane, so that seems logical to have Slivers there.
The Evolution one sounds like +1/+1 counter shenanigans.
Yeah.
But I also don't think they're all monocolored.
Yeah. Probably not. I would guess not, particularly if that one is Slivers. Although I guess they could, say something like it's a 2-color deck because on Ikoria, Slivers in this color get killed off by whatever. Who knows?
Vivian's hunting them.
Sure. Right. Yeah. Anyway, we got the names, and I'm not going to delve too deeply into that. We'll actually get real spoilers here probably in the fairly near future. It's already almost March, and those come out in April, right?
The end of April, yeah.
So spoilers are not too many weeks away. Any final bit of housekeeping or anything to take care of before we jump onto this main show topic? I don't think so.
I don't have anything.
All right. That was quick. Let's talk about hybrid mana.
So I want to say something before we start this.
All right.
I had a huge amount of notes on this subject.
Okay.
And then I decided I'm going to reread them, make sure this all sounds legit. And I'm reading through it, and I had to stop and call myself a complete moron because I went into this long spiel. It was a good half a page long about Chromatic Lantern and the 5-color rule, and you can cast both sides of the card. And I'm like, wait, no, those are split cards. What are you talking about? So I had to delete all of my notes and start over.
Well, I actually had a listener who was in our shop on Tuesday when we were playing, actually just for no reason, just coincidentally enough, was really super into hybrid mana and was like, here's why we should allow this. He was really, and I didn't say we're doing a show on it because I didn't want to. I was like, okay, well, I listened to his thoughts on it. So he was super pro it. This kind of inspired by the fact that Mark Rosewaters went over on a recent Drive to Work podcast the results of that bracket thing he did back in December.
Yep.
And we did a podcast on that back then with Zach as a guest where we talked about all the different changes he had suggested. That was when Chris was in jail.
Dead to the world.
laid up
in prison.
in prison.
We can edit that out.
No, that can stay in there. That's fine. Next time I'm out at Magic Fashions, look for the guy walking around in the orange jumpsuit.
Old-timey, like, metal ball around your leg and a chain that you're dragging around like it's the 1930s.
If he gets too close to the exit, his ankle starts to beep.
Right. Black and white
You guys
stripes.
could wear, like, guard costumes and that, and I'll just be like, oh, here he comes.
Like he's escaped from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? So that's kind of what inspired this, and Mara was talking about that particular one a lot this week. It wasn't the entire episode, but
It was a good half of it.
Yeah, and for some reason that was the one that caught fire on Twitter. I think I feel like in part because it's something that Morrow takes kind of personally because he defined Iron is his thing. He invented it. So I feel like maybe he's a little emotionally invested in it as well. For those that don't entirely understand what we're talking about here, I'll quickly explain it. A card that has a hybrid mana cost, and I'll use Ashiok Dream Renderer for an example, where it has hybrid blue, hybrid black. Right now your deck has to have both blue and black to play it. The proposal is this would function just like in Standard, where as long as you have blue mana, you can cast it. It can be in your deck even if there's no black stuff going on. So that was his proposal. He thinks that we should change things in Commander to allow hybrid cards to show up in decks that, if it's a hybrid, if it's a Ashiok, for example, it could be played mono black. A couple of notes here to get into. I like Mark Rosewaters a lot. I think he's a really good ambassador to the game. I don't think he knows very much about Commander.
He did flat out say he did a nice prelude in the show going we do not control Commander.
Correct.
That's what the rules committee is for.
Yep.
This is just my ideas that I did this on. I'm not saying any of this is going to happen because, again, we don't have any control over the rules of Commander.
Absolutely. And he full on admits he doesn't play that much Magic in general just because he doesn't have time, let alone Commander, which he doesn't really like as a format. I'll also note here that one of the things he said back when Eldraine was coming out was Eldraine's going to do something that has never been done before in our ongoing quest to help White in Commander. And what that wound up being was Happily Ever After, a card that really doesn't help White and doesn't do anything White needs it to do. He since kind of walked that comment back at the time, but I also feel a little bit like that's also an example of him maybe not understanding Commander at all. And even if he walked it back, that doesn't change the fact that
it's out there.
A crazy thing to kind of say.
Right.
If someone told me I'd be better off shooting free throws wearing oven mitts, and then later on said, well, maybe not better off, I'd be like, yeah, but why did you tell me that in the first place? I don't think you understand basketball.
That is the weirdest
That's the weirdest analogy. I was going to say clown shoes, and I'm like, yeah, oven mitts makes more sense. But so I do think he doesn't necessarily understand what we're doing in Commander to a degree. That's not to say he can't talk about it, but I also tend to kind of side-eye his opinion on Commander sometimes. Even though I like the guy and think he's really clever and does a lot of good for the game. Maybe that's my bias here. I'm maybe kind of biased against his opinion because I think that. I don't know, but I wanted to get that out there first.
You're like the anti-Mark Rosewater. All you care about is Commander, and he doesn't care about Commander at all.
In that regard, kind of. But to be clear, I do like Mark. I have that. I think he doesn't always quite get what's going on in Commander. So he offered a couple of main pro-hybrid arguments. He says he likes things from a rule perspective to be uniform across all formats. And that's tough to argue with. Like, if it makes sense in one format, imagine a new player coming in is like, oh, I could run Ashiok in my Standard deck with no blue mana sources. Why can't I do it in Commander if I can play black? That's an inconsistency, and I get why that's weird to players.
But it's not really an inconsistency because the rule for Commander is you can only use...
Commander has different rules.
Yeah, you can only... Yeah, the whole game itself has different rules.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So what do you think of that argument?
I think it's very faint and light at the best.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Chris. I get Mark's view on it because the rule should be applied to all the formats,
right.
Plus or minus the ban list. But Commander is essentially its own offshoot of Magic the Gathering.
Well, and there's also a ton of formats that have different rules. Whether you're not even looking at Plane Chase that has radically different rules with the Plane Chase cards, or Two-Headed Giant, where you have a partner you're playing with, that's much different. There's just a lot of different things between different formats. You have to deal with something like telling a new person, hey, a Lava Dart is technically legal in Modern, even though it's never been in any Modern sets because of Modern Horizons. But a bunch of other cards that were also in whatever set Lava Dart was in, those aren't legal in Modern because they weren't in, except for this one that was reprinted later on in 9th edition. There's a lot of confusing stuff that isn't even across all formats. And I don't think it's that huge of a deal. I get what he's saying, but I think we're inconsistent constantly. And they're being inconsistent to this day. Command Tower just got reprinted in Brawl decks.
Making it standard legal.
And it does nothing in
It
standard.
does nothing. Like, that's confusing for new players, too, so they keep doing confusing things. I'm not to say they shouldn't clean things up when they can, but, like, I don't know if I buy that argument necessarily. I get what he's saying, but that doesn't convince me. He says it frees up new cards to add helpful mechanics, particularly to white and red via hybrid. So, like, there's cards that you currently couldn't play in your mono white deck or your Boros deck that are maybe hybrid that you then could add in. What do you guys think of that argument?
I think it's kind of a cop-out in the fact that he doesn't want to address issues in red or white or Boros gold cards in general.
Maybe just fix Boros or add stuff to red and white in the first place.
He didn't say anything about green. I mean,
right. Yeah. Not addressing green's problems.
Right.
See, Return to Throne of Eldraine, the Greater Henge.
It'll be the even better version of Great Henge. Had 6 other random abilities it doesn't need in the card. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. Like, there's only 300 and some hybrid cards anyway in the game. So how many of those are good enough, let alone address issues in those colors? I'm sure a couple do.
I mean, all the Planeswalkers, the uncommons that were hybrid are now playable in single-color decks.
Right. Or like, hey, Beseech the Queen now gives you a tutor for 6 colorless mana in any color.
Woohoo!
You could play it in your colorless Eldrazi deck then.
Or play it in your mono white deck.
Yep.
I'm sure there's some players that would definitely do that. So there's a few things that would free up, but like, is that solving any problems really? I don't know if any of these cards are fixing anything.
So my pro argument for this is a card, and I do believe, Max and I were just talking about, I do believe it is Blind Obedience.
Sure.
It has the rules text that has a black mana symbol in it. Well, that's going to be very similar to this hybrid mana type of deal.
Sure.
Like, why can't I play that if I have this card that has a black symbol, but yet I can still play it in mono white?
Right. And the interesting part about that is, too, because of the way it's worded on the card, like if the card had an activated ability that wasn't hybrid, if it was black or white, it wouldn't be playable.
Yep.
But because it's worded with a hybrid mana, and the reminder text is what tells you can use.
Because it's in parentheses or whatever.
And Mark talked about that on the podcast. Yeah. He said, we designed this as a mechanic, not thinking its impact on Commander again.
Right.
But I'm sure it would have been more of, if they just wouldn't have made it rules text, we wouldn't be having this discussion on Blind Obedience.
Right. And that's a good card that has a ton of play.
Oh, yeah.
Although no one's discussing removing that. It's just an example of a way the hybrid kind of sneaks in already.
I am also going to relate this to the Band as Commander that was years ago.
Yeah.
They got rid of that because it was confusing and tough for like newer players type of deal. Because like, well, why can't I play this? I can play this in the 99 or the 99, but I can't have it as my general type deal. So they made it one specific rule, which is going to be similar with the hybrid where it's like, oh, so now I can play this, but I can't play like this other card. They're not going to quite understand it.
Yeah, I do think there are arguments for sure on the pro side of it. He didn't really convince me of any of them, but I do kind of see what he's saying most of the time. And we'll put a link out there if anyone doesn't know how to find Drive to Work. We'll put a link out there in our show notes when this gets tweeted out about how to find that particular podcast. It goes from roughly the beginning to about the 19-minute mark or so is where he stops talking about hybrid and moves on to the next thing.
Now, did Gavin or Sheldon or anybody reach out? And
nobody commented really on it.
No one responded to it? Okay.
Yeah. Except for, I do recall fairly recently, Sheldon made the comment that none of the changes that were discussed in that bracket were actively being considered for Commander.
Okay.
So it's not like this is something that's on the horizon that anyone needs to be worried about, I don't think. But it just generated a bunch of people talking about it, and it seemed like a good thing to talk about.
I wonder if there's something coming down the pipe, too, that's going to have a lot of hybrid mana in it.
Could easily, for sure.
And he's worried about backlash from the Commander community.
Yeah, sure. That definitely could be. Because we just got all those Planeswalkers, like you said, in War of the Spark.
Yep.
And Throne of Eldraine had a few.
Eldraine had some stuff, too, yeah. So maybe they're looking at the future and like, we want to use hybrid mana more and more, and it's going to be more and more of an issue. So that definitely could be.
The one thing that sticks in my head after listening to that episode was Mark kept saying how Commander treats them as gold cards, not one of 2 monocolored cards, essentially.
Yep.
Which I get that, like from a design, like we're using them as a card that's not technically a gold card.
Right.
Now, here's the thing, though. As a gold card, if you do any search or you're organizing, they're considered a gold card for your organizational abilities.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like none of us stick them in the white slot in our 5,000 count box that go in with the golds.
Yep.
Or maybe their own category, but like usually I put them in with the multicolor cards.
Same here.
Because technically it is multicolor.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it feels to me.
We're also Commander players.
Sure,
even as you know, any other format, I still would consider it multicolor.
The shop would have it in the multicolor.
Yeah, because it's both colors.
Yeah.
So if I'm going through building, say, a standard deck, if that was in my mono blue, but I'm not playing blue, I wouldn't even bother looking in blue for that card.
Right.
Now, if it's in gold, for a hybrid, and it's like, oh, well, I need something, let's say Ashiok, for instance. I'm playing mono black. It's like going through all my gold stuff. I'm like, oh, hey, I could put Ashiok in this deck type of deal.
Are there any hybrid cards out there that you guys think really would make an impact on Commander? I mentioned Beseech the Queen. That's the first one I thought of. But are there any other ones you think would be impactful?
What is that? Una, Queen of the Fae?
Ooh.
Being able to run her in a mono blue or a mono black deck. Mm-hmm. She's a pretty strong card.
I mean, all the auras from not Alara, but the Shadowmoor blocks. So, Favor of the Overbearing, Shield of the Oversoul. Granted, the text on those call out the creature's color, but being able to, give my mono green creature indestructible and +1/+1 is pretty good.
It gives you an ability that colors usually don't have. It's tough to give stuff Shroud in. It's less common to give it Shroud in green than it is in blue, but the blue-green one does give you that option.
I mean, Fracturing Gust would be backbreaking if you could put that in a mono green deck.
Yeah.
Or a mono white deck even.
Privileged Position, I kept thinking man, there's a lot of decks that run green that would love to have access to Privileged Position that can't, or even white. Like, your Boros deck can run Privileged Position then. There's a lot of decks that have half of those color combinations that would love to have that card.
I think quite a few of the Planeswalkers would see more play too.
I mean, Ashiok we kept using for an example because it's such a really, really good card. Being able to run Ashiok in any variant of a black or blue deck, not having to have both colors, that would see a ton more play because it's so useful.
The other one that crossed my mind was the uncommon Angrass that his static gives Menace.
Yeah,
where you could run that in mono red or mono black.
And the one that jumps out in my mind is the uncommon Kiora. Her static is whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters, draw a card.
Mono green, that's...
Yeah, and then untapping something in mono green for her -1, and she comes in with 7 loyalty, and you already have access to Doubling Season and Peer. Ooh.
How many elf decks that currently aren't white, whether they're green blue or green black or just mono green, would love Risa Redeemed?
Yes,
all of them.
His activated abilities are both
hybrid
too, so you could still run him in a mono green deck.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of elf decks I'm sure that would love to have him. Sig River Cutthroat in Merfolk deck, so most of the time they aren't running black. Suddenly Sig can show up in any Merfolk deck because it has blue.
Yep.
There it is. Murderous Redcap combo in a mono black deck or a mono red deck.
Yeah. Don't have to have both. You can just have one. Because that's the thing, particularly the ones that are the 2-color hybrids. You're not just able to run it in the mono decks. You're not running it in. You can run it in the 4-color deck that just is lacking the one other color.
Yep.
I mean, any combination you can now add it to. Wheel of Sun and Moon is a pretty nice piece of graveyard hate. That was, I think, Lorwyn blocked the enchantment. It goes on a player, and stuff that goes in their graveyard goes in the bottom of their library.
Oh, Reaper King.
Yeah, you're right.
In your colorless deck.
Yeah. Now, that winds up being 10 mana to cast. I'm not sure I want to do it, but opens up a lot of options there.
Yeah.
I kept thinking Worm Harvest is a really useful Golgari.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Card. Running Worm Harvest in mono black when you're filling your graveyard up, and every mono black deck that does that would be a really good card, I think, in a lot of mono black decks. Spinning Image makes a clone, and it has Rebound that's hybrid blue-green. Well, it gives you a really good clone in mono green that green doesn't ever do. That would be, I think, useful in a lot of green decks, or at least variants that have green that don't have access to blue. So I think there's plenty of good cards out there. Now, is it worth making that change to add those 15, 20 cards? Plus other ones we missed too. I don't know.
It's all going to depend on the deck, I guess.
Sure,
that's the thing.
So how about our decks? Are there any cards looking at these that you're thinking about that you like? I would definitely like to have the chance to add this to my deck.
I would throw Ashiok in my Mogus deck in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even hesitate.
That's an easy one.
Yes.
I probably would put it in R&K too.
Yeah, it's a great card. I was looking Biomass Mutation that I do run in my Edric deck, where it's hybrid green blue, 2 of those, and it's X to make creatures you control plus X on a turn, or X on a turn. So it just makes them whatever you set it to. I'd put that in Talrand for sure.
Oh yeah.
Instant speed, make my Drakes into 6/6s when it's swinging. It would legitimately be a win condition in that deck.
Yep.
I would put that in that deck, definitely.
I would love to run the uncommon Saheeli in Tuvasa because her static is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, make a 1/1 servo.
Yeah.
Or put it in Grumgully because it's red,
Right. My mono white Planeswalkers deck suddenly has access to Dolvin Hand of Control. It has Huatli Sun's Champion, or Sun's Heart, Nahiri, Storm of Stone.
Yes.
And Kaya, Bane of the Dead. All those could now be played in my mono white Planeswalker deck. I don't know if any of them would, just because of what the deck does, except for maybe Kaya. I think Kaya will be probably pretty solid in there.
The straight up exile.
But it gives me a bunch of options that I don't have. Kiora, I was like, man, that might go in Recce if I could play that Kiora.
Ooh. Oh, I wouldn't even hesitate. I'd jam that in there.
It would be really good in that Recce deck.
Bet the uncommon Vraska would be good in Recce too, because a lot of that stuff comes in with counters once you have Rishkar out.
I try not to run too many Planeswalkers in there, but it would be something I could definitely consider and look at that point. Thopter Foundry, my Vela deck, which I can't run right now, that would be great.
Your Crush deck has some extra combat stuff in it, right?
Crush does not.
Okay. But Waves of Aggression would be great in anything like that, or even in Dejeru, because you could reattack with all those tokens.
Waves of Aggression and Master Warcraft are both combat shenanigan cards, and Boros that are hybrid. You can run those in mono Ren decks. I'm sure would love to have access to both of those just to get as many extra combat steps as they can, and they can't now because they're hybrid, though they suddenly could. Mono White would be able to run an extra combat step trick with
Waves of Aggression.
That they can't run right now.
How many Kranko decks would love Wart the Raid Mother?
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff out there. There's a card called Trace of Abundance that I think was in Alara. That's basically a land ramp aura. Goes in a land for 2 mana and tap it for an extra mana, and it gives it Shroud.
Ooh.
But it's only 2 mana to cast. The problem is it's Naya colors because it's got a hybrid, I think, red-white on it. I can run that in my Sigarda deck where I tend to run those land enchantments, but I can't now. You can run it max in your Enchantress deck because you don't care.
Nope.
If you can ignore the red half of the symbol, that could go in your Enchantress deck if you wanted to. There's a few out there that I think I would run in my deck that we might have, but
I guess I'm on the side of keeping the rule how it is.
Which I think we both were on the show. Chris wasn't here for that one. I think we both were like, So you're still in favor. You wouldn't like to see it changed.
I wouldn't like to see it change. I also wouldn't be terribly upset if it did change.
Well, that's kind of the weird thing about this one. There's some of these I'm really, I would have a serious issue if they changed commander damage. That was one of the proposed ones, and I think that was one Mark actually was in favor of changing as well. There's a lot of people that play Voltron decks out there, particularly newer players.
Yeah.
And it's
honestly, I would build a straight-up life gain deck.
Yeah.
And never lose.
And make it just so powerful that I wouldn't even have to win. I'll just drag the game out and be sitting at 300 life. And
well, there's decks that already do that you have to kill with commander damage.
Yep, but now without commander damage, that's what I would do.
Yeah, in the game, I'll say the game already favors combo. And that isn't a bad thing necessarily. It's just the easiest way to kill 3 people simultaneously with a combo. That is just how logistics work out. Well, if you remove one more way to kill people with combat damage, it just makes combo that much more powerful. And again, no slam on combo, but you want to have a diverse game with multiple ways to win. And I feel like removing one, even if it only happens one time in one pod in one night, that's still plenty, I think. So that one I would be against to not keep straying off topic here. Whereas this hybrid one, I'm like, whatever. I don't like to change, but if it changed, I don't know if I am that bothered by it. I don't know if it affects enough stuff that I care.
I want it to change because I think it would be awesome.
Just to add new things and shake things up.
Just to shake things up.
Okay. Any other thoughts on it besides that? You just would I agree. It's nice to see things do.
Well, it allows more of more brews to be able to be made.
Sure.
Because now you have access to certain cards we'll talk about the Saheeli, the blue-red one. You can go into a deck that's meant for casting non-creature spells, and you're getting bonus out of her. It helps certain decks up their game a little bit.
Well, so you once upon a time, Max, had an Odric Lunarch Marshall deck.
Yes.
That's Odric that takes keywords and spreads them around. And it was decent, but I think not quite good enough.
That's fair, yeah.
Suddenly, if you can add in Master Warcraft so you can sneak through and just guarantee combat damage if you want.
Privileged position to give all my stuff hexproof.
Privileged position to give yourself hexproof and an extra combat step enabler in Waves of Aggression. 3 cards alone might make that deck or multiple different white decks that much better.
For sure. So here's something that I guess really wasn't talked about, but at what point, if this rule were to change, you could put hybrid mana cards into non-color identity. At what point did you go well, what if cards have activated abilities that aren't hybrid, but this green-white card, hybrid card, has a solid green activation. Where does that fall into?
So that becomes right. That's the next step of this, because you have the guild mage cycle as an example.
Right.
There's a bunch of those from Ravnica, and they're not all guild mages, but they're all some variant on that.
Like the Selesnya guild mages, double hybrid Selesnya, but it has 2 activated abilities. One's 3 and a solid green, and one's 3 and a solid white. Does that get excluded from this? Put it in a mono white deck because of that activated ability is non-hybrid?
Presumably, because that would be a separate rule change that would have to come into play to allow.
And I wonder if this is why they're not even thinking about it, because this was brought up as well during their meeting about it. It's like, well, what about this card? And they're like, oh, so then we'd have to change this and this, and they're like, this isn't even worth it to go into right now.
Because like Deathrite Shaman's an example.
Right.
Deathrite doesn't become usable in green or black if you made this change because it has activated abilities on it. So then the next push becomes, if you change this, I think logically you have to change both. You have to then say, well, then we ignore the cost of activated abilities.
As long as it's on a hybrid card.
As long as it's on a hybrid card, you can just ignore them.
I mean, to Chris's split card point from earlier in the show, a lot of those split cards from Ravnica guilds or Ravnica legions, half of them had a hybrid
and half
cost
of them
and half don't.
Yeah, I think that's why I started with my notes, because that's what the first thing that popped in my head.
Well, and then so then that raises the next level of this. There are split cards where like one half is castable in your colors and one half wouldn't be. Do those then become legal? Because in standard, if you can cast that card that has a black red on one half and red blue on the other, you can run both, even if you can't ever conceivably cast the red blue half. Well, does that then become okay in Commander, as long as you can cast one part of a split card? Not that a slippery slope argument is a good argument, but I'm just saying.
But it is a good argument.
Well, if you make one change, you do kind of probably have to make 2 other changes.
Yeah.
And those are just the 2 we're thinking of right now. Who knows what other ones then get opened up?
I mean, that's just me looking at page 8 of all the hybrid cards on Scryfall.
Right. So I'm kind of against that. Honestly, my first thing I always think of is I just don't like the way it looks. I just don't like looking at my hand that's a mono green deck and seeing like a green red card or something. That's a dumb argument. I'm not gonna act like it's a good argument. If someone's counter to me and saying that's dumb, I'm like, well, you won. Yep, you're right. You got me. You won that argument. So I admit that one's bad. My main argument is I think the color identity in Commander is something that's really special and unique about the format. You're not just building a deck, you're building a deck around your specific commander, and it's restricted to that commander's colors. And I think splashing in, even if they're hybrid cards that technically a hybrid card can do both of those things, although I think that's not entirely true, as we've seen with things like Waves of Aggression. The white just doesn't get extra combat steps, but it does in that case.
Right.
I think that you lose something that makes Commander unique.
For sure. This just popped in my head while you were talking. Another card that would be not great if the rule did change would be Dovescape.
Yes.
Do you really want mono white or white X decks to have this counter every ability?
Chris wants to troll everybody with Dovescape. No, but there's some problem cards that pop up for sure.
Yeah.
I just want to see Boros just sitting there with a
Dovescape
out there and be like, what's up, homies?
That would be a mess for sure. I can't remember if it was on this show or somewhere else. I know I've used this analogy before, but baseball is one of my favorite sports, and one of the things I love about baseball is
the cheating Astros.
The cheating Astros.
I'm a big Houston Astros.
Trash cans. Trash cans.
Love those teams. Love stealing signals.
Scumbags.
I like how, number one, the National League, the American League have slightly different rules. That's a weird thing that doesn't exist anywhere else.
Yep.
And it sounds dumb. Well, yeah, the NL doesn't have a designated hitter and the AL does, and that makes no sense. But it's also kind of cool that they have different rules for the 2 different leagues. That's interesting and unique about baseball. Same thing, if your baseball stadiums have different outfield measurements. So one stadium might have a 300-foot wall in right field, the other one might have a 400-foot wall in right field. There could be radically different dimensions, both on the height and the distance of outfield fences. And they can tweak those based on what their team is. If we have a bunch of good right-handed hitters this year, we might change our outfield a little bit to accommodate for that. And one team might be at a disadvantage going there. It adds a real advantage to stadiums that you don't get in other sports. I like that. That's a really cool thing that's unique to baseball.
I think, isn't that literally where home field advantage kind of came from?
Yes, I believe so. And I think it's a kind of a weird, special, stupid thing that I'm a fan of. I think Tiger Stadium actually has a flagpole in center field in play.
Yes.
That's a terrible idea. But it's weird and cool about baseball that no other sport has those unique things where stadiums are different.
Yep.
I like that Commander has this one different or a couple different unique things. So again, that's not a great argument against doing it. I understand someone saying, well, I'm sorry, you can't have your cool special format be entirely special anymore. I get it. That's my argument against it, is I just like Commander being the weird, unique thing that it is. And I think the more things you take away, the less it becomes that weird, unique, cool thing. And if it changed tomorrow, and if the Sheldon came down from the mountain with the new stone tablets tomorrow and said that we're allowing hybrid mana, all right.
Cool.
And I just add a few cards to decks, and it doesn't change anything for me, and that's fine.
The spreadsheets get opened up a few weeks early, and Dana goes to town.
I do them for March, like I didn't plan on doing anything for March, and I have March as well as the upcoming Ikoria ones for April, so that's fine. So Chris is for it, just to shake things up.
I am, just because I think it would be interesting to brew around it.
That's legit.
So I could be okay with them doing kind of what they did with the silver border cards a couple years ago. Like, give us like a 2-month span to
test it out.
We're going to try this. We're going to make sure all the CAG members try this out as best as they can to get some data. The RC tries it out as best they can to get some data, and then make a definitive ruling after that time span.
I mean, yeah. Particularly this kind of thing that isn't definitely going to break anything. It's because it's not going to break anything for sure.
Right.
I think the best way to do it would be open it up for 2 weeks when you have 2 Magic Fests going on, or for like a month, and then run it through Magic Fest, but have your people around who are doing like the command zone area walking up to people as they're playing, like, oh, you playing hybrid cards? What do you think about them? And just kind of taking notes for everything.
How many changes did you make? Do you like the change? Yeah, like survey the
any
command
opinions,
zone.
You know, you don't even have to take names, just like a yes or no opinions type of deal, and bring them back to the committee and see how they approach it then.
Yeah, just a paper survey when you sit down in your pod and you know, you do your survey, you don't put a name, you don't put your DCI number on there, and you just turn it in at the judge station at the beginning, at the head of the command zone.
That's not a bad idea.
They can give away Soul Rings as promos again.
I can't wait to get all mine this year.
And we're gonna stockpile this year,
right?
I think that's still the promo, right?
It is. Yeah. I need to get a couple of those foil Path to Exiles though.
I know they're awfully pretty,
and they're awfully pricey.
Oh really? Are they?
Yeah.
The only other really cool promo path is there's a Rebecca Gay one that looks really good that she did.
Is that the one?
Yes, that's the F&M.
The F&M one from 15 years ago, whenever it was.
I always get
one block, I believe.
I always get that one confused with the Swords to Plowshare promo, where it's the guy actually swinging the plow. Like when you tilt the foil, it's like a flip book almost.
But it kind of looks like a golfer.
Yeah.
yeah. That one is. I can't remember if that was judge or.
I think it was a player reward, and then I think Therese Nielsen did that.
Because the F&M Swords to Plowshares is the original one with Farmer Jesus, with the original alpha art.
Yep.
Which really looks good too. Okay, we've wandered.
They're commander cards. It's fine.
We've lost the narrative thread here and wandered off onto blinging out our decks.
But, I was not part of that. Just so everyone who's listening knows.
But I did just send off a Soul Ring to get altered by our friend Ryan from CCL. So he's making me a full art of the new Soul Ring art, the promo one from the command zone. Because Max had I had
a couple non-foils still. Yeah.
So I got a non-foil from you and sent it to Ryan.
And I'm going to correct myself before the internet does.
Okay.
That promo Swords I was just talking about was done by Sam Wolf Connolly.
Therese Nielsen's one is the one that we got in like
Eternal It's the From the Vault one.
Yeah. That has like the collage looking one,
like all of her art.
The bald dude, yes. Yeah. Okay. We've wandered off here.
Oh well.
So hybrid mana is good.
Hybrid mana, Chris is in favor. Max doesn't. Max
I don't
and
care.
I both are against it, but we're not that against it.
It's not the hill I want to die on.
Absolutely. There are changes that Merrill proposed that I'd be much more against. And this weird one, for some reason, was the one that everyone on Twitter was talking about.
Yeah, but it gave us a show topic.
There we go. We got a show topic out of it. We got our 50 minutes. So
thanks, Twitter.
The only time anyone's ever said that. Thank you, Twitter. Okay. That's going to wrap it up. We'll be back on Thursday with a deck tech. Our podcast theme is Retro Future Dirty by Kevin MacLeod, licensed via Creative Commons. Our show is edited by Rafael Garcia. You can find him on Twitter at Ursa Bearwalker. You can find me on Twitter at Dana Roach. You can find Max at CMDRCentral_Max. And you can find Chris at WiseSquishy1. Until Thursday, I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.